You're listening to Civic Media. You can tune into any of our live shows on any radio station across the state with the Civic Media app. Find us in your phone's app store and listen anytime, anywhere.
Live across Wisconsin on Civic Media. You're listening to Mornings with Pat Kreitlow, powered by Up North News. Now, from our Lake Wissota studio, here is the founding editor of Up North News, Pat Kreitlow.
Hey, good morning. It is 7:06. Nice to have you back here up north on this Tuesday morning, September 16th. 7:06 right now. Parker Olson producing things down in Madison Studio A2. Eau Claire City Council President Emily Berge is standing by to talk about Derek Van Orden's threats to cut off federal funds to the city of Eau Claire. Also in our next hour, Dan Schaefer from the Recombobulation area and Cam Stevenson from Courier Newsroom live from Capitol Hill. Meteorologist Brittany Merlot is back from her long weekend as well. Before we get to her, good morning from Tigerton, writes Rob. It's partly cloudy and 54 degrees. I was busy mowing 4 yards in Tigerton. It felt like July. It was hot. I drank plenty of water and Gatorade. Yesterday, someone or some people vandalized Tigerton's Union Cemetery, knocking down grave flowers, knocking the flowers off my mom and dad's gravestone. I had to go back and put those back up. He says in the weather almanac, yesterday in history, Wausau had a trace of snow on September 15th, 1959. He says he's got mowing jobs in Wittenberg. It's going to feel more like mid-July than mid-September. And he concludes by saying on YouTube in the comments section, welcome back to Wisconsin's best meteorologist, Brittany Merlot. Did you see the Northern Lights on Sunday night? Brittany's back after a long weekend. Well, you were busy having fun. Was it a good long weekend?
It was fantastic. But here's the thing. I was up north up until Sunday. That's when I left. So I missed the Northern Lights in the best spot possible. And I went down to see my sister. It was her birthday. So I was in Illinois while the Northern Lights were going on and where I had just been. So frustrating.
That's so unlucky.
I know.
That is very unfair. As you noted in your forecast, showers and thunderstorms early this morning in north central Wisconsin. And this morning, they developed in much the same way that they developed early yesterday afternoon, where it happened just east of the Chippewa Valley. So we could see the skies getting really dark. And yet we didn't get the rain because it was just firing up there. And now it's moved its way a little further to the northeast or northwest. Northeast. Compasses.
Yeah, so it's really interesting. It's firing up right on this exact little front in this little area. So it's not moving very fast. And right now it's pretty much over Park Falls, Phillips.
Yep.
Headed towards Tomahawk, Minocqua. You could see some heavy downpours, maybe some pea-sized hail with that, but nothing major. And then, of course, we got chances as we go through the rest of this week because all of this is firing up because a big low pressure system is stalled out in South Dakota, and it is going to be draping little fronts through the state and eventually moving its way through Wisconsin this weekend. So we do have wet weather here ahead of us. But first and foremost, I hope you've been enjoying the summery feel. It has been fantastic. A nice little second summer here for us. Temperatures once again will rise to the low to mid 80s, some upper 80s throughout the state as well today. Mostly sunny, still muggy out there. And then, of course, as we go through tomorrow, more scattered showers and storms could start to pop up in the early evening hours after we already have another hot, summery, sunny day. We'll be hitting 80 degrees across the state again tomorrow, nearing 90 in some spots. And then the cool down starts a little bit. That system starts to approach. We have a little bit more scattered, numerous showers and storms up north on Thursday. Temperatures slide to the 70s. Sunshine still hangs on down south. Madison, Milwaukee isn't looking at any rainfall really until about Friday and Saturday. That's when statewide, widespread of front's going to be pushing through, bringing some moderate to heavy rainfall potentially.
Just in time for the weekend.
I know, shucks.
Hey, we had a couple of good ones, so that's fine. Let's see. Robin Tigerton says, I'm going to send Brittany pictures of the Northern Lights.
Thank you, Rob.
Well,
Can't
but
wait.
Tony put it better when he said, moral of the story, don't go to Illinois.
I know.
There you go.
I know.
I
Wah,
know.
wah.
Family first. Thank you, Brittany. Appreciate it
You're
very
welcome.
much. Hey, sign up for our daily newsletter. Head over to upnorthnewswi.com. Click subscribe in the banner at the top of the homepage. You'll get our weekday version. You'll get a weekend version as well, where I have a question of the week and I lay out 4 widely spread conspiracy theories by Ron Johnson. And I ask you, which one do you wish he'd just stop talking about forever? And because all of the above was not an option, people were not really happy at having to pick just one. Anyway, you can put anything in the comment section at YouTube or Facebook here through Up North News or through Civic Media. And again, sign up for our newsletter, upnorthnewswi.com. Let's talk now with Eau Claire City Council President and candidate for Congress, Emily Berge, who joins us now to talk about her congressman and the guy who apparently does not want to be congressman for the city of Eau Claire anymore. Emily, good morning. How are you?
Good morning, Pat. I'm doing well. How are you doing?
I'm good. Now, I'm getting older. My memory is starting to fail, but this much I remember. When you got into the race, in part, it was because you were tired of Derek Van Orden essentially ignoring the city of Eau Claire and being downright hostile to it. I feel like he's decided to take that up a notch with a couple of different tweets yesterday, threatening federal funding for the city of Eau Claire because he didn't like what some city council members had to say in the wake of the Charlie Kirk murder. I'm betting that that's not sitting well with you, or probably shouldn't sit well with, 70 some thousand people in the city.
Yeah, I mean, the best predictor of future behavior is past behavior. And we have seen Derek Van Orden's bully tweets, the way he has treated, me on the phone when I've tried to work with him, to serve our constituents, because we share the same constituency. The 74,000 constituents of mine in Eau Claire are his as well. And you're right, Pat, your memory's just fine. That is the main reason why I got into this race, because we deserve better in Eau Claire and throughout the whole congressional district.
Yeah, and
And
that again is in the 3rd congressional district, which is a lot of western Wisconsin and reaches into part of central Wisconsin as well. You're one of 3 Democrats in the race right now. The primary will be held in August of next year. And we spoke in the last hour about First Amendment protected speech and how it's one thing for a member of Congress to be obsessed with Twitter and to tweet out threats about wanting to get people fired or cut off their federal funding. But Van Orden's gone a step further now and has introduced a bill that would essentially allow government to, police your social media posts and cut off funding if they decide that it crosses some kind of a line with them. I can't imagine they would have supported this if it were a Democrat proposing it, if the tables were turned. And yet I feel like Derek Van Orden either is missing the boat on the First Amendment or has other things he could be doing instead as a member of Congress for his district.
yeah, I mean, Derek Van Orden's MO is riling people up and being a bully and not solving problems. So again, more of the same behavior. This legislature that he proposed, I read through it yesterday, last night. It's pretty ridiculous, the fact that it attacks our First Amendment rights. I mean, our whole democracy is based on our First Amendment and freedom of speech and how that's protected, even if people do not politically align with yourself. So yeah, the whole thing is just ridiculous and harmful to our democracy, to our constituents, and we deserve better.
Well, in terms of being a candidate for Congress, I want to hear more about how the campaign is going, and also to let people know that in about 20 minutes, we're going to be talking to Fred Clark, a former Assembly rep who's now living up in the Ashland Bayfield area and is working with a group that is trying to get that very expansive 7th congressional district better connected so that voters there have a better idea of the issues at play, of the record of Tom Tiffany, of the alternatives that might be out there. The 3rd isn't quite as big as the 7th, but it too is a rather sprawling district. Can you talk about what you've been doing as part of your campaign, even before Derek Van Orden ratcheted up the, violent rhetoric?
Yeah, I've been, we have 19 beautiful counties in the 3rd congressional district, and I have been very busy traveling throughout the 19 counties, My goal is to meet all the people throughout the district, because I think it's really important to show up, meet the people where they're at, listen to what's going on, how this Trump administration, Derek Van Orden's actions are impacting them, because it is impacting them. And so it's important to hear from the people directly, just how they're faring through this administration, and are they better off now than they were a year ago? The answer is no, by the way. And it's really important to get out there and boots on the ground, meet the people. I mean, that's why I love local government. It connects me directly with the people, and I'm just continuing my service that way.
Well,
and I believe, yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead, Emily.
Well, I think I met Fred Clark at the Jackson County picnic. So
yes. Yep. And again, just a very active person when it comes to getting people together and talking about issues. And that's the thing I want to conclude on is the issues. And again, we've touched on this. You've mentioned, inflation is still an issue. China hasn't purchased a single soybean yet, not the $12 billion worth that they bought last year. So you've got farmers who are about to harvest a whole lot in Derek Van Orden's district who don't have a market for their crops. You have Affordable Care Act premium subsidies that are going to be expiring. You have the prospect of a government shutdown. If Derek Van Orden's not going to work on those, I mean, talk about what you would do to better prioritize these issues that face the families of the 3rd Congressional District.
Well, I mean, yes, we need our representatives to work for us and to actually get things done and not attack our freedom of speech, right? That's number one. Actually do the work and not spend your day on Twitter or whatnot. So again, the issues that I'm hearing, healthcare is huge out there. People are really concerned if you're on Medicare now, the potential cuts. If you are on Medicaid, the cuts that will happen. Social Security, people are very concerned about that. And so creating actually a healthcare solutions, Medicare for all. I mean, people deserve healthcare no matter how much money is in their bank account, what jobs they have, who they're married to. So healthcare is definitely important to focus on. Housing is very important. We have a homelessness crisis. We have a housing crisis. It's not getting any better. It's getting worse. We need real solutions. Let's make it legal again for government to build public housing and to fund those housing units. Let's see. And then water, talk about agriculture. Our farmers are really concerned about, and rural and urban people are concerned about water quality. And this is an issue that cuts across all political divides. Republican, Democrat, young, old, urban, rural, people want to be able to drink their water and use their water. And again, there's different solutions there too. We could put, farmers they're the greatest stewards of our land. And I think we can work with farmers to help protect our land and protect our water. And so putting things in the farm bill that really make that incentivize those practices. They're already doing a great job and just helping them. I think farmers in general, we should have more farmers on our land, not less, and stop the privatization and the corporation farming, and let's allow farmers to feed their families and feed their communities. So lots of different issues, real things that I'm hearing out there. I'm asking people not only what are you concerned about, but what are your solutions? Because the people who are closest to the problems have the best solutions. So that's how we're going to get things done.
Emily Berge is a candidate for Congress in the 3rd Congressional District, the president of the Eau Claire City Council, and looking to represent much more than the city of Eau Claire, but perhaps more so than the current congressman for Eau Claire and the 3rd Congressional District. Again, one of 3 Democratic candidates for a primary that will take place in August of next year. A long campaign trail ahead, Emily, and I really appreciate you taking some time off of your regular duties to tell us about recent events. Thanks for stopping in this morning. Have a great day.
Thanks, Pat. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much as well. And again, we will continue to talk through candidates in this race, especially in this particular district, the 3rd Congressional District, because again, we have all of these real issues to deal with. And we have a congressman who's fixated on getting cities and companies to fire people because he doesn't like the words that they say. That's not how things work in this country. We will be talking, as I mentioned, to Fred Clark about the 7th Congressional District coming up in just a bit. I'm Pat Kreitlow. This is the Civic Media Radio Network.
You're listening to Civic Media. Stay up to date on the latest news and information for your local community and Wisconsin by signing up for our free email newsletter. Visit civicmedia.us/email to get started.
Welcome back to special sports coverage by Mornings with Pat Kreitlow. Today, we look at a clash of titans. 4 would enter the arena. Only 2 would come away victorious after mortal combat, hand-to-hand, eye-to-eye, paddle to paddle. The 8th annual Clash of the Paddles to benefit the YMCA of the Northwoods on the frozen tundra of Pioneer Park. Field General Dan Hagan has wounds that may never heal, but also memories of a glorious contest that will last forever. Dan Hagan, welcome. We cannot wait to hear about the battle.
You encapsulated that perfectly. I put on my war paint Saturday morning and I headed into the pickleball court at Pioneer Park. And some old people beat up on me. We lost to some septuagenarians, if you're familiar with the term.
I am looking at the metal podium right there, and there you are, smiling, looking happy, looking like you just came out of the Olivia Newton-John physical video, and there on the top of the podium are
some white hairs.
So that's a lot of gray hair up there, buddy.
Mhm.
But apparently they have more time. See, you're a working man. You can only do so much practice. And
That's right.
These guys.
You're ahead of the curve if you think about it. You're already this good. Think about how good you'll be when you're old.
That's what I'm saying, right? If I just keep at it, my partner keeps at it, I think we could do some great things. But it was kind of interesting. All of the skilled players were using precision tactics. My buddy and I, we would hit the ball as hard as we could right at the other team.
There's your strategy. Hit ball, see ball.
Yeah.
Oh boy, that's great. Well, you enjoyed yourself. You got what hardware for that? What was it?
Third place, I got a trophy. Third place
trophy?
to be clear, this is the B division, so it is not even the top division.
But it wouldn't take much to put a little plate right below that and just have it say Wisconsin Broadcasters Association Man of the Year or Regional Emmy or something like that. So
I have access to Photoshop at WJFW. Anything is possible. I was thinking about making the trophy a lot bigger.
I think you should. I love that. So I'm glad you had a good weekend. Congratulations on all of that. You do have still the day job at Newswatch 12 there in Rhinelander. And what are some of the things that you guys have been covering up in your neck of the Northwoods?
Yeah, we sometimes go down to Stevens Point. That is part of our viewing area. So we went down there yesterday, and the city has installed some lockers for unhoused people. There are a lot of homeless people living in downtown Stevens Point because of access to some great resources, such as the public library for Wi-Fi and charging their phones, as well as the Franciscans downtown, which is like a Franciscan, I think, monk, gives out free meals every day at noon. And there's also some other, accessible places downtown. So Mayor Mike Wiesa, who I'm sure you've had on the show, he, along with other city leaders, have installed these lockers. So these people who have pretty much have their belongings on them at all hours of the day now have a place to put their belongings so they won't get stolen, and so that some business owners in that area won't have to have so much kind of just stuff all around.
Yeah. I mean, it's not an apples to apples comparison of what we have here in Chippewa Falls with Hope Village, the tiny houses concept of at least having some place other than, a park bench or something like that. In that same way, however, just having these lockers, as opposed to, like you said, you see shopping carts or everything's in one great big garbage bag that people are carrying around with them. And they're like the tiny homes, you add a degree of dignity to people who are clearly down on their luck and clearly need access to resources, which is hard to do when you're just dragging everything along with you.
And I think the idea is it's just one less thing they have to worry about. Some more brain space for them to figure out, okay, how can I get out of this predicament? And then Stevens Point, as well as working on like a kind of a permanent homeless shelter. So
Mhm.
that should be in the future.
Okay. And you were working on a story, or you and the team there were working on a story regarding the Lac de Flambeau. Did I hear correctly?
Yeah, so the Lac de Flambeau tribe, this is something I learned yesterday, but they came out with this announcement that they have expanded their reservation boundaries.
Hmm.
I kind of figured this was a set thing, but they're expanding their boundaries. They're also purchasing more land inside the reservation. If we want to do a history lesson, the Dawes Act of the 1920s carved up reservations, allowing the land inside to be sold to non-tribal members. So really, if you look at a map of their reservation, it's kind of a patchwork of tribal land and non-tribal owned private property. So the tribe has been able to purchase some of that land back. They've also been able to expand their borders for the first time into Iron and Oneida counties. And of course, this is all ceded territory that they sold to the United States government centuries ago. So just something that I thought was kind of interesting.
Well, yeah, it is, because all we've been hearing about is the road dispute with easements, and a lot of that is based on property ownership. So a
Right.
development like this is definitely noteworthy and worth following from the folks over at WJFW Newswatch 12 in Rhinelander. Uh, Dan, what's your next mountain to climb here? I mean, we've done the battles with the paddles. Where do you go from here? Is it just Birkebeiner training, or do you have something else along the way? What's your
Yeah,
next
so
test?
I have a half marathon, the Three Eagle half marathon. It's I think October 6th. It's between Three Lakes and Eagle River. I really don't want to do it, but I want to get better at skiing.
Well,
So if I'm in
we've
better
got the
shape for
sports. Let's
skiing,
bring the sports music back. We'll get you all
okay.
pumped up for this again. We'll look forward to the day where we can again say that warrior Dan Hagen has been training. He's got the eye of the tiger. He doesn't have the. Parker doesn't want to play the music. It's okay. Anyway, you've got the City Hall in Philadelphia. You don't need to run up those steps. You just need to outrun the Hodag. Dan Hagen, thank you so much. Good to talk to you as always, buddy.
Thank you, Pat.
All right. We will be talking to Fred Clark about matters in the 7th Congressional District up north right after this. I'm Pat Kreitlow. This is the Civic Media Radio Network. We've got Brewers baseball on several stations across the Civic Media Radio Network. Brewers taking on the Los Angeles Angels. Pregame coverage begins at 6:05 on several stations across the Civic Media Radio Network, civicmedia.us, to learn more about that. All right, we spent the past half hour talking in part with Emily Berge about the 3rd Congressional District and Representative Derek Van Orden, not exactly being representative of the district. It's a sprawling district. It is sometimes tough for all the various progressives and moderates in all of those counties to get together. And at that point, people in the 7th Congressional District up north say, hold my beer, because you've got an even bigger district there. So much more sprawling, so much more of a challenge. But former State Assembly Rep Fred Clark is up to the challenge. He and others are putting together a new group that is meant to help people understand the issues at play in the 7th Congressional District up north. And Fred Clark is with us now. Fred, good morning. How are you?
Morning, Pat. Wonderful. Thank you. The sun's out and we're in the perfect period of late summer, early fall.
Yes, we are. And you represented the Baraboo area for years in the Wisconsin legislature, and now you moved way up north. And you might be retired from the legislature, but you're hardly retiring from public service. And I know we might have mentioned this in a previous visit, but before we get into the whole Northern Alliance and everything else, why do you choose to stay involved even once you've changed zip codes and have a chance to just ignore all that political noise that's going on out there in the world?
Right. The din of what comes out of Madison or Washington isn't quite as loud up here, but I'll tell you right now, people are paying attention. And I just think, Pat, that we're in an extraordinary moment as a nation and in our region. both because of world events and because of what's going on right now with our federal government. So a huge source of concern from almost everyone I talk to, and that's part of the reason why I do stay involved.
Yeah, and well, on top of that, you've got representation in the 7th district through Tom Tiffany, who, like you and like me, we're all former state legislators, and Tiffany has now been the congressional representative. And while you don't hear nearly as much about him as Derek Van Orden, because he just can't shut his mouth or his keyboard, the fact of the matter is Congressman Tom Tiffany, along with the rest of the Wisconsin Republican congressional delegation, they all appear pretty much in lockstep with what the Trump agenda is and what it has been doing to their congressional districts.
Yeah, absolutely, and that was one of the reasons that we really did decide to become more active in organizing in the 7th congressional district, because back in February and March, when Elon Musk was taking a chainsaw to the federal government with absolutely no oversight, huge amount of destruction there with firings and agencies ground to a halt. And then the big beautiful bill that passed with so insufficient debate and lack of understanding of what was in it, that's only beginning to come to light now. And during all that time, Tom Tiffany was basically silent or absent. He had many requests for him to appear in public or to hold a town hall or talk to his constituents. And up until Tuesday of last week, he had not had a public event. So we learned a lot over the course of the summer, and we're trying to put that knowledge into action now.
Yeah, and basically, for folks who aren't familiar with the 7th congressional district, it's not the entire northern half of Wisconsin, but it's mighty close. If you go down Florence County, Forest, Langley through Endigo, and then down to Marathon, down to Wood and parts of Juneau and Jackson and Monroe, and then you start that triangle up the other way, go up through Clark County, Chippewa County, Barron County, Burnett County, basically that entire V, and then throw in Polk County and St. Croix County for good measure. That is the very large 7th congressional district, one of, if not the largest congressional district east of the Mississippi River. And so there is this challenge of reaching everybody. I certainly know from having run in that district for Congress in 2012 that you have all of these county parties. You have the state Democratic Party. Then every one of these counties has a county party. But then there are plenty of groups out there of people who don't necessarily want to belong to a political party. They have their own issues. They have their own priorities. But they still want to remain active. And part of the challenge has been keeping all of these folks up to date with issues, with what their incumbent congressmen and legislators are doing, and maybe uniting around certain issues and maybe uniting around certain candidates. And that has led you and others to create something called the Northern Alliance of Wisconsin. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, you bet. And that really grew out of a couple of friends of mine up here in Bayfield County decided to quit griping about it, and we went on the road last summer and took trips to Merrill and Wausau and Woodruff and Anago and Marshfield, and over on the western side of the district, Hudson and Spooner and Webster, and talked to Democratic and independent groups throughout that region, and about 20 different visits. And that's what we heard over and over was a set of themes and concerns about healthcare and immigration, and about the economic effects of this insane tariff war that nobody understands, and also a desire to be better organized, and just such a huge district that when we began to talk about a network to stitch all of that energy together, lots of heads would nod. So that's the whole purpose of the Northern Alliance, is to really bring those groups together and help share more information, best practices, and just share the energy.
And right now that group has a website up. It's a pretty simple one, northernalliancewi.com. Again, northernalliancewi.com. And you do have your first virtual event planned. And again, that's where technology is our friend, because again, back in 2012, a little candidate, Pat Kreitlow, you just got in the car and you drove like crazy. And now, thanks to Zoom and other technologies, you guys are able to put on a virtual event that people throughout the 7th district can take part in.
That's right. We're spreading the word for that right now. It'll be a big Zoom call, and anybody anywhere in northern Wisconsin's welcome to join and learn about what we're doing. We're going to share some just information about what we learned over the course of the summer organizing this thing. Pat, we're going to hear from you. Thank you for being willing to be part of that. Talk a little bit about your experience and some of the history of organizing in this region. And then we're going to hear from some younger folks who are doing organizing in a different way that is really just a breath of fresh air, bringing younger people into local community issues where it's not just elections. It's about all the other issues that are important to quality of life in communities. And the durability of that is really important thing that we can learn about.
And by the way, when you mentioned younger people, which, can you believe there's anybody younger than us? I mean, how is it that where did all this gray come from all of us? But anyway, my point being that these younger folks, their ways of organizing and communicating are not what we grew up with. And that's a good thing because again, the technology has advanced. The passions have changed. I mean, I'm early Gen X, and it's felt like our generational motto was apathy, and it's so not the case now that they're making TikToks, they're making reels, they're posting stories, and telling stories differently than we did. They're losing the jargon. They're getting much more real, if you will. Things aren't so slick and polished. They're much more at a grassroots retail level. And frankly, with a congressional district that big and with multiple expensive TV markets, it's this kind of digital communication that is really going to be key to stitching together an entire northern half of the state. So that has to be really encouraging to see that development.
Well, it is, and it's something that we need to grow. And a thing that we've heard often about, and this is some of the rap on traditional party politics, is that, well, if, Democrats would beat your door down for 2 months in September and October and tell you this is the most important election of our lifetime, and then we go away, and you don't hear from us for a year. And a lot of people, that feels extractive, and what they want to do is find a reason to stay in organizing in a community throughout the year and find your local issue. There's no shortage of them, but let's organize around that, and an election will be part of it.
I have heard that so much in recent years, that phrase year-round organizing. And it's people who, again, understand the value of not making this simply transactional. I come to you at election season, you vote for me, and then I leave you alone. Well, it's not about leaving alone. It's about keeping conversations going, keeping engaged, keeping people informed on the issues. And the challenge here in the 7th Congressional District is you have an incumbent who obviously has access to funds and to media and everything and can spread whatever kind of a message he wants. And, how do you go about pointing out how much more he's adding to the national debt? How many more people are being kicked off of Medicaid? What happens when all of these public lands get sold off? It is so much more of a challenge that, people go, why are you starting this early for 2026? Well, there's some of your reasons right there.
Yeah, absolutely. And Congressman Tiffany was on his first public appearance was a telephone town hall on Tuesday of last week, along with Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy. And of course, the two of them complimented each other throughout the course of the hour, while promising that no one would be hurt by the gigantic cuts to Medicaid, just as one example. And we know that's not true. We know that Wisconsin's already bracing for a huge fiscal impact of those cuts. The rural healthcare system is already beginning to feel the strain of the changes that's going to force closure of clinics and ultimately lack of healthcare access for everyone. Just one example.
And I'll tell you, I was looking up the headline. I wanted to get it just right from Politico, the political magazine out in Washington, D.C. And here's the headline: "The Rural Health Hunger Games are underway. States are scrambling for a piece of a $50 billion fund, but of course it is unclear exactly how you qualify for that money unless Dr. Oz or Donald Trump, happen to wave their hand and approve or disapprove of things. And they're making it sound like this $50 billion fund, when actually what it is there was a much larger cut to rural health care. And then they're putting 50 billion back in and saying, here, now you all compete for this.
Yeah. And I heard someone compare this to, if you told all the restaurants in your town that they couldn't serve a third of your people that live in the town, but we'll give you a couple $1,000 just to stay open. Well, it doesn't make any sense. And the loss of coverage to people that need it is going to be felt in shorter lives, unhealthier lives, and ultimately more people in ERs relying on charity care.
Yeah, if you can even get to the ER. And so that again is the larger point, is that, your Tom Tiffany's and others are going to be saying, look at this brand new $50 billion fund. And what they're not saying, and what we need more people talking about, is how that doesn't come near to making up that so much more than $50 billion was cut. And again, that's just for this one issue. And it's why the Northern Alliance came together. So to learn more about the group, maybe get on their mailing list, maybe sign up for the upcoming Zoom session, head to northernalliancewi.com. And like I said, I'm looking forward to being part of the event, and certainly a lot to be said here as well by former state rep Fred Clark, who's now helping organize the Northern Alliance with a team up in way up north, as I like to put it. Fred, thank you so much for visiting with us. Appreciate it very much.
You bet, Pat. Great to see you, and see you in a couple of weeks.
See you in a couple of weeks as well, Fred. Thank you so much. Still ahead, coming up in the next hour, we've got Dan and Cam Stevenson from Courier Newsroom, live from the nation's capital, and then Dan Schaefer from the Recombobulation area, talking about the latest in Wisconsin political news, including that ever-expanding race for governor candidate field. We'll be back.
You're listening to Civic Media. Find the latest news, information, and archives of all your favorite shows on the Civic Media website, civicmedia.us.
Hey, remember, if you can't listen for the entire 3 hours every weekday, 6 to 9, and I mean, I can. Why can't you? I got to be here. Well, you don't have to be. You can pod this program. You can head over to Spotify, sign up to follow the program, and that way the latest editions here are downloaded right to your phone, and you can listen to them on demand when you're doing something else around the house or on the road, whatever the case may be. You can do that with Apple, wherever you get your podcasts. Pick your favorite platform. Ours is Spotify. Get over there and follow us as a show. Some breaking news out of Hollywood, and this is truly the loss of a legend of movie making from my younger years. Robert Redford, who was a big time charmer turned Oscar-winning director, whose hit movies often help America make sense of itself, as written by Brooks Barnes of the New York Times, writing this obituary, says that Robert Redford died early this morning at his home in Utah. He was 89 years old. He writes, with a distaste for Hollywood's dumb-it-down approach to movie making, Redford typically demanded that his films carry some cultural weight, in many cases making serious topics like grief and political corruption resonate with audiences, in no small part because of his immense star power. He was in Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid in 1969. He was talking about the journalistic pursuit of Richard Nixon in the Watergate era with All the President's Men in 1976. In 3 Days of the Condor in 1975, he was an introverted CIA codebreaker caught up in a murderous cat and mouse game. He was a Depression-era grifter in The Sting in 1973, which gave him his first and only Oscar nomination as an actor. He was a Hollywood leading man for decades in comedies, in dramas, in thrillers. Studios often sold him as a sex symbol, and why wouldn't you with that guy's good looks? His body of work as a romantic leading man owed a great deal to the commanding actresses who were paired with him. There was Jane Fonda in Barefoot in the Park in 1967. There was Barbara Streisand in The Way We Were in 1973. There was Meryl Streep in Out of Africa in 1985. He later would branch into directing in his 40s, and he won an Academy Award for his first effort, the movie called Ordinary People in 1980, with Mary Tyler Moore about an upper middle class family's disintegration after a son's death. Ordinary People also won 3 other Oscars, including for Best Picture. He then had perhaps his greatest cultural impact as a make it up as he went along independent filmmaker. In 1981, he founded the Sundance Institute, which was a nonprofit dedicated to cultivating fresh cinematic voices. He took over a struggling film festival in Utah in 1984. He renamed it for the Sundance Institute a year later, and now the Sundance Film Festival is a global showcase and marketplace for American films made outside of the Hollywood system. Robert Redford, again, you could go on and on, as this article in the New York Times does, for his environmental work, for all of his other causes along the way. But again, in terms of, true box office gold, there was nothing bigger in the 1970s, arguably. And he was the guy. It was Paul Newman, and it was Robert Redford. Those were the two. You saw them in The Sting and in so many other movies. Paul Newman is gone, and now Robert Redford is passing away at the age of 89 in Utah. So wanted to pass along that for you. We will have on Thursdays now, Sharita Booker will join us to talk about festivals and events and things. We've been talking about all the county fairs in Wisconsin. Well, those are all done now, as Parker knows, as he's had to listen to me week after week go through the list. But you know what?
True.
We're not done yet having fun in Wisconsin on the weekends. And so I wanted to share a few of these this weekend. For example, the Milwaukee Symphony Orchestra this weekend is playing along with the 1989 version of Batman, the movie, with Michael Keaton and Jack Nicholson, and all of the music that was composed by legendary Danny Elfman. And so the Milwaukee Symphony Orchestra will be playing the music of the 1989 Batman film and screening it coming up this weekend.
I love those things. Those are so cool.
Oh, there's the Wet Whistle Wine Fest in Algoma Friday and Saturday, the Brentwood Chili Cook-Off, the Waukesha Apple Harvest Festival on Saturday, the Bonduel Founders Day on Saturday. Saturday is also Downtown Beloit Fall Festival. Here's one in Edgerton, the Atomic Voodoo Rockabilly Meltdown. The Atomic Voodoo Rockabilly Meltdown is a live music and car show with raffles and prizes and food trucks. By the way, all of this is off of the Travel Wisconsin site, and Sharita Booker on Thursday will focus this down to 3 and tell us more about it. But I bring it up because last weekend we went to the Fall Festival in Eau Claire, had never been there before, and Sherry wanted to go, and I'm like, why? She's like, well, because Sharita made it sound fun.
Oh, yeah.
Sharita has never been there, but she makes everything sound fun, she said. It's her favorite segment. Never mind, me. So there's also, see if you can tell a theme with this weekend's other festivals. There's Oktoberfest here in Chippewa Falls coming up this weekend. There's Waukesha Oktoberfest. There's Munich in Manitowoc this weekend. There's Elktoberfest in Elkhart Lake. See what they did there? Huh?
Yeah.
There are Oktoberfests this weekend in Burlington, in Stevens Point, and in Three Lakes. And do you know what's happening in the Fox Cities this weekend? Irish Fest of the Fox Cities.
I forgot.
Come on, guys.
Yes.
Turn the page on the calendar.
I forgot about Irish Fest in the Fox City.
Yes. all of that is going on here. And again, over at Travel Wisconsin, you can, and then that's before the colors even start popping, when people are going to be taking their road trips.
Yeah.
Which I'm already looking forward to.
There are leaves falling off of the tree that I parked my car next to already.
Yeah. Yep. I totally see that happening. I think Alicia speaks for many, saying I had such a crush on Robert Redford in some of his younger films. Again, he was just that big a deal. And if you're a little too young for this segment, pick any one of those movies and spend some time getting to know Robert Redford this weekend. Cam Stevenson is standing by in Washington, D.C. to tell us what's happening there, along with Dan Schaefer in the next hour. I'm Pat Kreitlow. This is the Civic Media Radio Network.
The national news cycle never stops, but it can be hard to find news about your local community. Civic Media is dedicated to providing quality local and state news coverage across Wisconsin. With the Civic Media app, you can get notifications about local stories that matter to you and your community. Find the free Civic Media app in your phone's app store and choose notifications from the menu to tell us what kind of news you want to hear about.